Morning, everyone. Oh, that's me. So yeah, obviously it's great when you get a build-up that says I'm from one of the most amazing agencies on the planet. Not much to live up to there, then. Okay, can we bring up the first slide? Yeah, so I'm here to talk about the case for chaos as the best way to rewire the creative machine. Obviously, chaos and rewiring the machine sounds like there's a bit of conflict there, so hopefully I'll try and explain that. But first of all, I want to make a bit of provide a bit of context for why I think chaos is the right way forward. We live in surprising times. Who would have predicted that the United States would elect a certifiably insane president? I've been working in this business for a long time. There's been a lot of change. I remember the days when we had Umatics. Anyone here remember Umatics? No, one or two? When I started, we only had 2 commercial TV channels in the UK. So things have changed a lot. Things have always been changing. It does seem, though, that in recent times, the speed of change has accelerated. Nothing's certain. And as has been said, it's very hard to make predictions, especially about the future. So all my remarks are kind of couched in the context of that. One thing that we can say confidently is that technology is transforming lives. That's nothing new. The printing press put the monks out of business. The iPhone put camera businesses out of business. Change has always been going on, and it's been disrupting our businesses. Change generally manifesting itself as shortening the distance between A and B, taking friction out of the process. While that's going on with all our clients, as we were hearing earlier on, our clients' businesses are changing too. What's happening in our industry? Well, the money is flowing into the big digital media platforms, and the ad business seems to be focusing on consolidation and mergers and acquisitions. And as our president put it, the holding companies are getting so big they can't see their dicks anymore, in the sense that they're becoming more about huge delivery machines rather than creative organizations. So what else is going on? The consulting firms, the likes of Accenture and Deloitte, are buying up agencies, getting into fields which used to be the field of the so-called creative agencies. And that's interesting because they seem like nice people. This was a quote from the senior MD of Accenture Interactive. He said, "Our immediate mission is to seek and destroy and dominate the market." So they sound like nice people to be working with. So not surprising, perhaps, that creative agencies are running scared of those who believe that marketing is reducible to an engineering problem. And arguably, we're becoming more obsessed with efficient delivery, asset distribution, than we are with creative ideas. The result of that, arguably, potentially, is that while culture around us is blossoming and blooming and has never been more vibrant, and content is more exciting than ever, arguably the disruption that's gone on in TV has resulted in an outburst of creativity in that business. Meanwhile, advertising has not kept pace. In the 1990s, a lot of people were saying the advertising is better than the programs. They're not saying that anymore. Even if you go back to 2005, they weren't saying that. 2018, I don't have the data for, but you can guarantee that's a downward trend. So advertising is not keeping pace with this outburst of creativity in other aspects of culture. Creativity, I would argue, is enslaved because we're treating it as just another manufacturing process, repeatable and predictable. And what that means is that people like us are squandering the chance to create advantage and value, and as a result, producing landfill. Most of what we are producing as an industry is junk. And perhaps this is an inevitable and natural tension, because from supply chain management to logistics to manufacturing to legal, much of what the corporation does can be reduced to automated processes. But what the corporation wants and what creativity needs are different. And we won't make any progress until we actually understand that tension. So let's think for a minute about what it is that the corporation is trying to do. The corporation has always been an exercise in control and stability, because much of what it does can be subjected to process and automation. And that instinct for order and control is understandable. Because, as Schumacher put it in the book Small is Beautiful, without order, planning, predictability, central control, accountancy, instructions to the underlings, obedience, discipline, without all these great things, nothing fruitful can happen because everything in the corporation disintegrates and evaporates. However, what this means is that unchecked, control and predictability create dead zones of the imagination. The problem is that marketing can't be reduced to just an engineering problem. Because if we accept the premise that creativity can be professionalized, if we can extract the play and the unpredictability and the chaos and the fun and the magic from the process, then what we end up with is just another manufacturing process that restricts the potential of creativity. Because repeatable methods produce predictable outputs. It's like cloning. You can't clone ideas the way that you can clone sheep. And that kind of predictability is valuable in manufacturing, but not in anything that requires creativity. Because if you introduce predictability to something that requires creativity, what you end up with is homogeneity, lack of distinctiveness. And what we're trying to do most of the time is to create distinctiveness. And you end up with something like this. And you can see that there's an area of homogeneity, and even in something as specific as book design, that makes these individual books not stand out. They're all the same. Predictability kills the value of creativity. The value of creativity comes from originality and unpredictability. And of course, we know what the value of creativity is. We have the data to prove it. Creativity amplifies the commercial impact of marketing investment by a factor of 11. The work done by Binnett and Field in the IPA's study on commercial creativity shows that creativity amplifies the impact of marketing investment by 11. So given that, you would think that all marketers would be saying, I've got to get myself some of that creativity. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to always be the case. Creativity doesn't come out of a linear, logical, if this, then that process. You know, we sometimes get asked by clients. I had one of these yesterday, in fact. We're in a room with a client, and they asked, what is the Widening Kennedy ideation process? And I'm always tempted to say the ideation process for what we do is like the ideation process for writing a poem, or writing a novel, or writing a song, or painting a picture. You just have to do it. There's no process that is going to get you to the right answer. You need to have people who are able to do it, and you need to put them in an environment where they can do it and give them the tools to do it, but then you just have to do it. There's no process that enables creativity. This is a portrait. Has anyone seen this? Are you familiar with this thing? It's a portrait that was created by an artificial intelligence. It was sold at Christie's in New York a couple of weeks ago for about just less than $500,000. And a French art collective programmed this artificial intelligence to mimic portraiture and create a portrait on the basis of what it had found. Now, is that art? Is it creativity? Or if you're cynical like me, do you think it sounds like a bit of a PR stunt for the art collective and for Christie's? I would argue that this is not really art. It's not really creativity. This isn't the product of a thinking, emotional being communicating a feeling or an idea to other beings. It's an algorithm, and as such, it is not creativity. Creativity needs that messy, unpredictable, human, emotional approach to things that can't be created by a process and is illogical. It's the unpredictability, the irrationality, and the illogic of it that creates something different and special and cuts through. Where's the logic in using a moonwalking Shetland pony to sell a mobile phone network? There isn't any logic. Where's the logic in creating a campaign for your client that provokes your customers to be so angry about it that they set fire to their shoes, and the most powerful man in the world tweets about how bad your campaign is? There is no logic. I have to say we were absolutely delighted when that happened. That was one of our major KPIs, was can we get Trump to complain about the campaign? and he was unable to resist. So there's no marketer who was following a pattern of logic would ever do something as crazy as this, but illogical, but highly effective, because logic doesn't necessarily predict success. Where's the logic in putting this guy on a horse? There is no logic, and that's why it works, because it makes people say, what the fuck? That's what creativity is about. Now, I'm not saying that there's no value at all in logical, linear processes. Of course, there is some value at certain stages of the process, when we're nudging and converting interest into action. At the top end of at the bottom end of the funnel, where someone's already interested in something and we're just kind of trying to give them the nudge in behavior, then that's where those kind of things are really useful. But converting interest is not the same as building memories, or creating meaning, or exciting the indifferent, or increasing demand, or supporting pricing. All the things that happen here at the top end of the funnel. The stuff that we call brand building. The stuff that adds real value to the bottom line of our client's business. The stuff that we're trying to do most of the time. The stuff that creativity can really make a difference to. The stuff that the creative machine is actually for. So that's my kind of context for why I think chaos is what the creative machine needs. I've now got some suggestions based on our experience at Widening Kennedy on how you might be able to do that. So here's my little slide that shows a bit of rewiring there. You're all using the same metaphor, as you can see. So I've got 8 suggestions based on our experience of how to rewire the creative machine. First one is to escape the corporation and get out into culture. As Chris was saying earlier, to connect with real people in real lives and what they're really doing. So get out to here, where you can see real people in their real lives. To here. To here. To here. To here. This is actually Barcelona. To here. Eventually, we'll get to here. Because a lot of the time in our business, we are not connected to real life, either because of the kind of people we have working in our companies or the way that we talk to our target audiences. Even the fact that we call them target audiences is weirdly artificial. And only studying people in laboratory conditions where we put them in a kind of a windowless room and treat them like laboratory subjects. To paraphrase Jacques Cousteau, it's a little bit like only studying dolphins in captivity. Oh. My zapper is slowing down here. In fact, it seems to have stopped. Do we need to reboot the? Oh, there we go. That's gonna. I need to go back now. Bear with me, everybody. Okay. So, as I was saying, only studying people in focus group conditions is like only studying dolphins in captivity. The few moments of what passes for real-world contact is putting people in a sterile situation, an artificial environment, asking them dumb questions and trying to pass that off as insight. That's not really understanding the people we're talking to. And we hear people, marketers, saying things like this. We'd love to do more marketing, but actually we're too busy running the business. Well, I don't hold out an awful lot of hope for the business if that's the way we're thinking about marketing. It does seem that for many marketers these days, the consumer, the so-called consumer, even using the term the consumer dehumanizes them, is now a faceless, theoretical, abstract construct. So it's no wonder that we start to invent consumers that don't exist. How many times do we see a brief where there's an imaginary, fictional consumer on there? And here's a description from an actual client brief, obviously not one of Widening Kennedy's valued clients. Our target audience are restless social beings with an active attitude towards life. They embrace challenges, new experiences, and are driven by personal achievements. They are resilient, resourceful, and highly connected, always seeking novelty and blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's bollocks, and it's not based on any real understanding of who we're talking to whatsoever. In these circumstances, no wonder that psychobabble gets passed off as insight. This is another quote from an actual brief, not one of our clients. Refrigerators are a canvas for self-expression. They just are not. They're the place where you stick Post-it notes to remind you to do stuff, or you stick your kid's school report on. They are not a canvas for self-expression, not in the fucking real world. No wonder the obvious is passed off as revelation. So here's another kind of fantastic piece of audience insight. In a world of day-to-day constraints and social pressure, consumers want nights out that offer the promise that the unexpected can happen. I think that's not really an insight. It was more pithily expressed by the psychological guru Cyndi Lauper when she said, "When the working day is done, girls just want to have fun." These are not useful insights into the people we're trying to talk to. No wonder, given the fact that we never get out in the real world, we're culturally deaf. And while things like this are happening on the streets in the real world, marketers are doing shit like this. You know, completely misunderstanding what's going on and trying to piggyback it for their brand in a completely culturally inappropriate way. No wonder in these circumstances that we end up making stuff that looks like it came out of an automated factory, because this probably did. Do you get this campaign over here in mainland Europe? With it's just that same thing again and again with the weird Trivago woman. Where we only see consumers or impressions or traffic or clicks, and we don't think about real people, we dehumanize the whole enterprise, and we start thinking about people as a component in a process. It almost becomes like we're thinking about the process like Newtonian physics, where people are bodies that are acted upon by forces, and that there will be an exact result that we can predict from the end of it. Unfortunately, that is not the way that real people behave in real life. So get out. Suggestion number one: get out of the office and into the culture. Suggestion number two: stop expecting data to do all the work for us. Yes, data is useful, but data can't necessarily help you to understand real people. We need to connect with them in the real world. We hear clients and advertisers and marketers saying things like this: we have real-time predictive data for every one of our 21 million customers. And how much do we know about them as real people rather than as shoppers? Nothing. Empathy doesn't come from data. It comes from understanding how people feel. And most of the time, what we're doing is not to rationally persuade people, it's to make them feel something. And you do that by understanding how they feel and understanding what you can do for them and how you can build a relationship with them. And you can't do that without empathy. Most of the time, the corporation prefers reason because reason is quantifiable. Reason is easy to understand. Reason is easy to sell. But the data doesn't necessarily help you to understand how people feel. Number three, third suggestion would be resist the call of orthodoxy. We like to think of ourselves as innovators and iconoclasts and people who do something different. But we forget when we're doing that how much we're dependent on received wisdom. At Widening Kennedy, when you walk in the door of our office in London, there's a kind of a mannequin holding a briefcase, and written on the briefcase are the words in big pink letters, "Walk in stupid every morning." And we do that to remind ourselves and our clients that we need to be stupid. We need to assume that we don't know the answers and that conventional wisdom isn't going to help us. If we only follow conventional wisdom, we'll do the same thing that we did last time. Our competition will overtake us, our clients will lose, and we'll go out of business. So being stupid can be extremely valuable in resisting the call of orthodoxy. So we need to avoid rules and dogma and convention and best practice and all of this kind of stuff that we see all the time. Have an insight, make it ownable, make it persuasive, get the branding in early, all the rules that supposedly govern what we do. These black boxes and rule books and formulas and ways of thinking about things save us the need for independent thinking. They make it easy. They make it straightforward. But they also make us slaves to other people's ideologies and assumptions. They stop us from thinking originally. And in particular, if we only listen to for-profit research vendors telling us what the way forward is, it's a dumb way to learn about the possibilities of creativity. It's like asking the fishmonger what he recommends for dinner. You're always going to get the same answer. So, resist rules and orthodoxy. Number 4, make dissent safe. Liberating creativity demands that we need to have an environment where dissent and disagreement are encouraged and safe. It's our only protection against mindless herd behavior where the mass voice is the only one that's heard within the organization. Creativity depends on the alternative point of view, on debate, on discussion, on argument. If we don't have that, the danger is we follow the herd or the flock. There are lots of studies that show that even one dissenting voice in an organization or in a process can dramatically reduce conformity and error. And yeah, all it would have needed was just one voice, maybe, to prevent this disaster. And as the scientist and historian Bronowski noted, there hasn't ever been a society that actually died of dissent. Dissent is healthy in a society or an organization. So encourage dissent is my 4th suggestion. 5th one, we must start fearing the obvious. Like really fearing it. We put, a long time ago in marketing, we put insight and relevance on a pedestal and said relevance is really important. And logical processes are very good at getting you to a relevant answer. The trouble is, you can be relevant as anything and still as boring as hell, which is what happened here, I think. Relevance is not enough in today's world where people are bombarded by messages. They've got much shorter spans of attention, much less time to think about anything. So the only chance that we have of cutting through against the competition, the only chance that we have of getting people to spend some of their valuable time and attention with us is being interesting or entertaining or surprising or unpredictable or irrational or illogical or in some way capturing their attention. So avoid the obvious. Number 6, learn to let go. We need organizations that are capable of learning and adaptation and not controlling everything. So as a kind of an analogy or an example, cities are creative, productive, interesting, vibrant, healthy, culturally diverse because of all the things that are going on within them that are beyond control. And as they become more diverse and more creative and more uncontrollable, they become more healthy and more productive and more wealthy. It's the unpredictability and the unmanageability and the freedom of the city that keeps it vibrant. On the other hand, corporations, as they grow, can strangle themselves because the systems of control that are designed to manage growth are the things that stifle creativity, impose processes on things, and reduce the opportunity for individuality and unpredictability. So, how can the organization grow and mature and innovate and not lose its vibrancy and its adaptability? How do we find a balance between managing things and allowing creativity to flourish? The social scientist John Gardner notes, and I would agree, that the answer is culture. The way for the corporation to balance the need for order with the opportunity for diversity and innovation is culture, nurturing culture, which operates through shared values, shared ambitions, focuses or outputs, not processes, and provides the space for individual voices to flourish. So for the corporation that wants to stay agile enough to grow and innovate and diversify in the 21st century, culture is arguably the enterprise software, the stuff that the company needs to run on for the 21st century. Process, in a way, is just a substitute for culture. And if you have process and no culture, then you're screwed. I think the other thing, my 7th suggestion would be, remember, in terms of everything we're doing, nobody cares. Nobody is interested in our shitty marketing messages. Nobody cares about our lovely design. Nobody cares about our beautifully put together piece of web design or functionality or interactivity. Nobody cares about any of this stuff. The people in this business talk about brand lovers. There's no such thing as a brand lover. Nobody cares about fucking brands. They've got more important things in their lives. They love their wife and their kids and their husband. They do not love brands. So remember that and recognize that we're not trying to produce work that stokes this love or fuels this love. We're trying to overcome their massive indifference, their huge not giving a shit about the stuff that we do in the context of their busy lives with much more important things to do. So let's stop making crap and start making things that people actually want. And I would say in the context of that, it's okay to hate some aspects of this business. Hate can be a powerful thing to push against in order to do better work. Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, our founding client, always said and still says that he hates advertising. At Widening Kennedy, we still hate a lot of advertising. It's kind of the rock that the agency was built upon in many ways. But that understanding of hate pushes us to do better. As we said here, hate can be good, hate can be great, because it can give us the push to do stuff that we can be proud of in the context of that hate of the business and the indifference of the people we're talking to. So that would be my next suggestion. Remember that nobody cares, and so what we do has to be awesome. And my 8th suggestion would be resist becoming professional. However grown up that might make us feel, however much it might help us in some circumstances to persuade the clients. Look, we're like your tax accountant, or we're like your lawyer. We're like management consultancy. Really, we are professional. Because professionalism seeks to extract that human, unpredictable element and to replace it with common standards and practices, which is fine if you're a doctor or a food producer or a parts manufacturer for NASA rockets. But I would argue that reducing the human element, taking that out, robs creativity of the madness and the unpredictability and the leaps of logic that it needs to survive and to be valuable and to make a difference. So my final thing was avoid becoming professional. So there are that's the summary of my 8 ways to rewire the creative machine. Those are the ones some of the ones that work for us at Widening Kennedy. And I think focusing on some of those things is maybe just a helpful way to think in a context where everyone's talking about data and automation and expansion and replicability and professionalism. How can we nurture some of that chaos and unpredictability and creativity that is where we really add value? So, a few thoughts in conclusion. If I can, my clicker's stuck again. Bear with me. It's done that same thing again. Hang on. We're really embracing unpredictability in this presentation. So, in conclusion, I'm probably going to need to read this off my notes, if I can get this slide up. So what I was going to say, if I can get the slide up, is that creativity blooms, there it is, with diversity and opportunity. I need to read this off my piece of paper because it's too small on screen. As Paul Feldwick puts it in his history of advertising theory and thought, The Anatomy of Humbug, and I thought this was a good way of expressing it, so I'm just going to use his words. There is much more possible diversity in ways of thinking about advertising than we normally allow. We could use this diversity to give us greater scope in what we do. For all its talk of creativity and thinking outside the box, the ad business today is in danger of losing its diversity. Creative people and marketing people alike each go to the same schools, learn the same things, and the same things they learn are too often a third-hand mashup of Reeves's USP theory and Bernbach's creative rhetoric. But in creating ads, we still have the full resources of human culture at our disposal. Ads don't need to look like they were written by Bernbach 60 years ago or like last year's Cannes winner. So whatever research vendors or agencies or anybody, or I tell you, there's no one way to to produce communication. There's no one way in which communication works. There's no one way in which creativity can add value. And anybody who tries to tell you different or sell you a specific process or a methodology for creativity doesn't know what they're talking about and is wasting your time. And just to give you an example of what that blossoming of opportunity that we have, this is Widening Kennedy in 2009, making the Write the Future commercial for Nike. We had a Hollywood A-list director and a huge budget and a crew to match. This is Widening Kennedy in 2018. This is the creative team shooting 33 films for Instagram on their mobile phone, editing it and presenting it to the client on the phone. Obviously, we're not doing that on every client, but it shows you the difference and the diversity and the opportunity that these changes have brought to us. And if we don't take advantage of these things, we're missing out. The modern corporation can't afford not to harness this opportunity and to make room for creativity. It can't afford not to stay flexible, fluid, and willing to try new things. So we've got to stop trying to professionalize all this stuff that resists codification. Stop trying to systematize the messiness that's essential to create magic, and recognize that real people, real lives are messy. They do irrational, illogical things. They fall in love. They vote for fucking Brexit. You can't systematize and process this stuff. So we need to escape the machine, get back out into the real world, and stop, as an industry, taking ourselves so seriously. For God's sake, look at these guys. Recognize that we don't want to be accountants. We don't want to be lawyers. We are in the business of creativity and unpredictability, and let's be proud of that. In the words of our founder, Dan Wieden, he was onto this chaos thing a long time ago. He said, "Chaos asks stuff of you that order never will, and shows you all the weird shit order tries to hide. Chaos is the only thing that wants you to grow, that demands you to be creative, to make something that matters." And that's what we all want to do, is to make something that matters. So I would say that embracing chaos is the best hope that we have for rewiring the creative machine in a way that can unfuck creativity for all of us. That's it for me. Thank you.